The red light on the security camera blinked like a guilty eye. That was the first thing I noticed when I replayed the footage. At 76, I thought I had seen every kind of betrayal a family could offer. I had lived through wars, buried my wife, survived 3 surgeries, and outlasted 2 businesses. But nothing prepared me for the moment I pressed play and watched my own daughter-in-law teach my granddaughter how to lie in court. My name is Arthur Bennett. Most people just call me Grandpa Art. Until last Tuesday, I believed my family was messy but honest. Now I know better. It all started with a stupid argument over a house. After my wife Helen passed away 5 years ago, I decided to downsize. The big family home felt like an empty museum without her laughter. My son Daniel suggested I move into a smaller place and let him handle the property. I trusted him. He was my boy. Daniel and his wife Melissa had 1 child, Sophie, my 12-year-old granddaughter. Sweet kid. Shy, polite, always hugging me whenever she came over. I adored her more than anything. The plan was simple: sell the house, split the money fairly, and use part of it to secure my retirement. But somewhere along the way, simple turned complicated. Melissa wanted more. She claimed I had promised to give them the house outright. She said I told her years ago that it would be their inheritance. That was a lie. I never promised such a thing. When I refused to sign the papers, things turned ugly fast. Lawyers got involved. Accusations started flying. Suddenly, I wasn't just an old man protecting his future. I was selfish, confused, and according to Melissa, mentally unstable. Then came the lawsuit. Melissa filed a claim saying I had verbally agreed to transfer the house to them and was now backing out due to age-related memory issues. In other words, she was trying to paint me as senile. It hurt more than I can describe. Daniel stayed quiet through most of it. He avoided my calls, stopped visiting, and let his wife lead the charge. That silence broke my heart. But I still believed Sophie was safe from all the adult nonsense. I was wrong. The camera was installed because of a string of package thefts in the neighborhood. Nothing fancy, just a small security system pointing at my driveway and front porch. I rarely checked it unless something went missing. That afternoon, I was reviewing the footage out of boredom when I noticed something odd. Melissa's car pulling into my driveway 2 weeks earlier, on a day I wasn't home. That didn't make sense. I kept watching. The video showed her and Sophie getting out of the car and sitting on my front steps. They didn't knock. They didn't try to come inside. Instead, they just talked. Curious, I turned up the audio. And that's when my world cracked open. "Remember what I told you, okay?" Melissa said on the recording, kneeling in front of her daughter. Sophie nodded, swinging her legs nervously. "You have to tell the judge that Grandpa promised us the house. Say you heard him say it many times." "But I didn't," Sophie replied softly. My chest tightened as I listened. Melissa glanced around and lowered her voice. "It doesn't matter, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups need a little help with the truth." "That's lying," Sophie whispered. "No," Melissa snapped. "It's protecting our family." I felt sick. This wasn't just a greedy woman fighting over property anymore. This was a mother manipulating her own child to destroy me. "Just repeat what we practiced," Melissa continued. "Say Grandpa told you he was giving us everything because he didn't need it anymore." Sophie looked down at her shoes. "But Grandpa is nice. I don't want to lie about him." Melissa grabbed her shoulders. "You're doing this for us. Do you want to lose our house, your school, your friends?" The little girl shook her head. "Then you'll say what I tell you," Melissa said firmly. The video ended there. I sat frozen in my chair long after the screen went dark. So this was their plan. Use my own granddaughter as a weapon. That night I didn't sleep. I kept hearing Sophie's small, frightened voice in my head. I knew I had two choices: pretend I never saw the video or fight back. Helen always said I was stubborn. She used to joke that I'd argue with a brick wall if I thought it was wrong. So I chose to fight. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Mr. Harris. When he watched the footage, his face went pale. "This changes everything, Arthur," he said quietly. "This isn't just unethical, it's witness tampering." "Can we use it?" I asked. "Oh yes," he replied, "and we will." For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. The court date arrived faster than I expected. Walking into that cold, formal courtroom felt like stepping into enemy territory. Melissa sat on one side with her attorney, looking confident and polished. Daniel avoided my eyes. And Sophie. She looked terrified. Seeing her there, clutching a little stuffed rabbit, nearly broke me. No child should ever be dragged into adult wars. When the proceedings began, Melissa's lawyer called Sophie to the stand. My heart pounded as she took her seat. "Did your grandfather tell you he was giving your parents the house?" the lawyer asked gently. Sophie hesitated. "Yes," she whispered. The word felt like a knife. But I knew the truth. When it was our turn, Mr. Harris stood up calmly. "Your Honor, before we continue, we have evidence to present." He played the video. Every word, every lie, every painful second. The courtroom fell silent. Melissa's face drained of color as her own voice echoed through the speakers. Sophie began to cry. Daniel buried his face in his hands. When the video ended, the judge removed his glasses slowly. "Mrs. Bennett," he said, looking at Melissa, "do you care to explain this?" She stammered, stumbled, tried to twist the story. But it was too late. The truth was out. The case collapsed after that. The judge dismissed their claim and referred the matter for further investigation due to attempted witness manipulation. But that wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part came afterward. Sophie ran to me in the hallway, sobbing. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," she cried. "Mommy made me do it. I didn't want to lie." I knelt down and hugged her as tightly as my old arms would allow. "I know, sweetheart," I whispered. "I know." Daniel finally spoke to me that day. "I didn't know she went that far," he said quietly. Maybe he didn't. Or maybe he just didn't want to. Either way, the damage was done. Families like to pretend wounds heal quickly. They don't. Months have passed since that day. The house was sold fairly. I moved into a small cottage near the river, just like Helen and I once planned. Daniel and I talk again, carefully, like two men walking across thin ice. Melissa rarely looks me in the eye. And Sophie. She visits me every Saturday. We bake cookies, feed the ducks, and pretend the world is simple again. But every time I see her, I'm reminded of what greed can do, how easily adults can steal the innocence of a child to serve their own selfish needs. I don't hate Melissa, but I'll never trust her again. As for me, I've learned something important in my old age. Betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it sits beside you at the family dinner table, smiling. And sometimes it takes a blinking red camera light to reveal the truth.